Level 1. The parts handler. You arrive before the factory feels fully awake. The sky outside is still pale grey, and the building in front of you glows with clean white light, like a machine that never truly sleeps. You pass through security, tap your badge for the first time, and step into a world where everything has a number, a label, a barcode, a destination. The air smells faintly of plastic trays, cardboard, clean floors, and electronics sealed inside anti-static packaging. You are not building a phone yet. You are not touching the screen that someone will swipe hundreds of times a day. You are not testing the camera, the battery, or the chip inside it. At this level, you are only allowed to handle parts, small, silent, expensive pieces that must move through the factory without damage, confusion, or delay. A supervisor points toward rows of shelves stacked with trays, camera modules, tiny screws, flexible cables, battery packs sealed in protective material, display panels resting inside foam, lined containers, memory components so small they look almost meaningless in your gloved hand. But nothing here is meaningless. Every tray has a code. Every box belongs to a lot. Every lot belongs to a schedule. And every schedule feeds a production line somewhere deeper inside the building. You push a cart slowly between the shelves, careful not to bump the corners. Your gloves feel too new. Your badge swings against your chest. Your eyes keep jumping from label to label, afraid that one wrong scan could send the right part to the wrong station. The first lesson comes quietly. Inside a company like Samsung, a product does not begin on a stage, under bright lights, in the hands of an executive. It begins here in a quiet storage lane, with people like you moving invisible pieces before anyone calls them innovation. Then you hear it, the distant rhythm of the assembly floor. A low mechanical hum, the soft beep of scanners, the rolling sound of carts moving toward the line. Somewhere beyond the doors, these parts will become something recognizable. A device, a screen, a product with a name people already trust. But for now, your job is simple. Do not drop it, do not mix it, do not slow it down. And as you lift the next tray with both hands, you begin to understand the pressure of being the lowest level in a global technology machine. Nobody notices you when everything goes right. But one mistake from you can travel farther than you ever will. Because before a Samsung device can shine in someone's hand, it has to survive your hands first. Level 2. The assembly operator. The doors to the assembly floor open with a soft mechanical hiss, and the sound hits you before the sight does. It is not loud like a factory from an old movie. It is cleaner, sharper, more controlled. The steady rhythm of conveyor belts, the short beep of scanners, the faint buzz of electric tools, the quiet footsteps of workers moving with practiced precision. White light spreads across long production lines, where parts no longer sit in boxes. Now they move. Screens, frames, camera modules, circuit boards, tiny connectors, protective films, all of them pass from station to station, like pieces of a machine learning how to become a product. Your new station is simple at first glance. A tray arrives. You scan it, you pick up a component with gloved fingers, you place it into position, you check alignment, you press tighten, or connect exactly as instructed. Then you let the unit move forward. The first few times, your hands feel slow. The worker beside you barely looks down before finishing the same action. Their movements are quiet and efficient, like muscle memory has replaced thought. You try to copy the rhythm, but your eyes keep searching for confirmation. Is the cable seated correctly? Is the frame clean? Did the tool click at the right moment? Did your glove leave dust where there should be none? At level 1, your fear was sending the wrong part to the wrong place. Here, the fear is more immediate. The product is under your hands, unfinished, but already valuable. You can feel how little space there is between speed and error. If you move too slowly, the line feels it. If you move too quickly, the product carries your mistake forward, hidden under layers that someone else may not discover until much later. A supervisor walks behind the stations, watching the flow without saying much. The silence makes you more nervous than shouting would. Then one device pauses in front of you with its back still open. For a second you see the inside, the tight arrangement of components, the careful geometry, the invisible planning behind every millimeter to the customer. This will become a smooth rectangle of glass and metal. To you, it is a crowded world where one careless touch can ruin something that took thousands of decisions to design. You complete your step and release it back onto the conveyor. It moves away from you, joining dozens of others, and you realize something uncomfortable. The higher the brand's promise, the smaller your margin for being human. And deeper inside the factory, the product will soon face eyes even stricter than yours. Level 3. The screen inspector. The next room feels darker, quieter, and somehow more unforgiving. On the assembly floor, mistakes hide inside motion, buried under speed, noise, and repetition. Here, mistakes have nowhere to run. You step into a screen inspection area where the lights are dimmed and rows of displays glow in controlled color patterns. Pure white, deep black, red, green, blue. Gradients that slide slowly across the glass like liquid light. Your gloves are cleaner now. Your movements are slower. Instead of keeping pace with a conveyor, you sit before a test station and learn how to stare. At first, every screen looks perfect. That is what frightens you. The trainer beside you points at one panel and asks what you see. They lean closer, tap the corner of the glass, and suddenly you notice it, a tiny bright speck, almost invisible until your eyes lock onto it. A dead pixel, a small, uneven glow near the edge, a hair-thin scratch that only appears when the screen tilts under the inspection lamp. The flaw is so small that part of you wants to ignore it. But this is the level where you learn that the customer's eye is not forgiving when the product is expensive. A phone can feel powerful, fast, and beautifully designed. But if the screen disappoints the person holding it, the whole device feels broken. Your task is not to admire the display. Your task is to distrust it. You rotate each unit under soft angled light. Check the edges, examine the color shifts, compare brightness, watch for pressure marks, and search for dust trapped beneath the glass. The rhythm is psychological now. You are no longer fighting the speed of the line. You are fighting your own fatigue. After 20 screens, your eyes begin to blur. After 50, perfect black starts to look gray. After 100, you understand why inspection is not just a job of eyesight, but discipline. At level 2, your hands built part of the product. At level 3, your eyes decide whether it deserves to move forward. And when you reject your first screen, placing it carefully into a separate tray, you feel a strange weight in your chest. It is not pride exactly. It is the realization that quality is not a slogan printed in a presentation. Quality is someone like you, sitting in a dim room, finding a flaw almost no one else would notice before the world does. But screens are only one surface of the system. Deeper inside the factory, the machines that make this precision possible are waiting for someone to keep them alive. Level 4, the machine technician the first time the line stops. The silence is louder than the machines. A warning light flashes above one section of the floor. Yellow at first, then red. And every worker nearby looks toward the same point with the same quiet question in their eyes. How long will this take? You are no longer sitting at a station repeating one careful task. Now, you carry a toolkit, a tablet, spare sensors, calibration pieces, and the nervous authority of someone expected to understand why a machine suddenly refuses to obey. The stopped unit sits beneath a robotic arm, half positioned, half forgotten, like the factory has frozen mid-breath. On the screen beside it, error codes stack in short lines. They look simple, almost polite. But behind each code is a chain of possible causes. A misread sensor, a loose connection, a worn guide rail, a tiny alignment drift, a software timing issue, or a part that arrived with a dimension so slightly off that only the machine noticed. You kneel beside the equipment and feel the heat still coming from the motor housing. The floor smells faintly of warm metal, clean plastic, and disinfected air around you. Production does not panic, but it waits. That waiting is pressure. At level 3, you looked for flaws after they appeared. Here, you search for the reason flaws are born. You check the sensor lens, clean a surface that already looks clean, restart a diagnostic cycle, and watch the robotic arm move in slow test motion. It lowers, pauses, shifts a fraction too far, then returns. There it is, not broken, not dramatic, just wrong enough to matter. Your supervisor asks for the estimate, and the question lands heavier than it should. 5 minutes means recovery, 20 minutes means reports, an hour means someone upstairs starts calculating lost output. You adjust the calibration, run the test again, and this time the arm lands exactly where it should. The light changes back to green, the conveyor breathes forward, and the workers return to their rhythm as if nothing happened. Nobody applauds. Nobody asks how close the line came to a larger delay. That is when you understand the technician's place inside Samsung's machine. If you do your job perfectly, your success disappears. The product keeps moving, the numbers keep rising, and your name is not part of the story. But every perfect screen, every clean frame, every finished device depends on machines that can fail in ways too small for anyone else to see. And the higher you climb, the more you realize that the factory is not controlled by machines alone. It is controlled by the people who keep those machines from becoming expensive silence. Level 5. The shift leader. By the time you become a shift leader, the factory no longer feels like a place made of machines. It feels like a living system made of tired eyes, repeated movements, small delays, quiet frustrations, and people trying not to become the reason the line falls behind. You start your shift before the workers settle into their stations, checking attendance, reviewing output targets, listening to yesterday's problems, and scanning the floor for anything that already feels wrong. A missing operator, a slow machine, a new worker standing too stiffly, a tray of parts waiting where it should not be waiting. At level 4, pressure came from broken equipment. You walk between stations with a tablet in one hand and a radio clipped to your uniform, watching the rhythm of the line like a doctor listening to a heartbeat. The machines can be calibrated, but people cannot be adjusted with a setting. One worker is moving slower because their wrist hurts. Another is frustrated because a batch keeps arriving slightly late. Someone at inspection is rejecting more units than usual, and production is starting to lose pace. Your job is to absorb all of it before it becomes visible to the managers above you. You encourage one person, warn another, move a trained worker to a weak station, call maintenance before a minor sound becomes a stoppage, and explain the same instruction 3 times without sounding impatient. This is the first level where leadership does not feel powerful, it feels exposed. If the team performs well, the numbers look normal. If the team fails, your name appears in the report. Near the middle of the shift, a small issue spreads fast. One station slows down, the next station waits, inspection trays fill up, and the clean rhythm of the line begins to wrinkle. You step in, rearrange positions, slow one section just enough to prevent a worse mistake, and keep your voice calm even as the output board turns yellow. That is when you understand what this level really teaches you inside a Samsung factory. Leadership begins when you become responsible for mistakes you did not personally make. And as the line recovers, you look up toward the engineering office above the floor, where someone is watching the numbers and asking a bigger question. Not who made the mistake, but why the system allowed it to happen. Level 6. The process engineer from the engineering office. The factory looks different. The same production floor stretches below you, bright and busy, but now you no longer see only workers, stations, and machines. You see patterns. You see where movement slows, where trays wait too long, where one repeated defect keeps appearing after the same step, where a machine that never fully stops still quietly wastes seconds every cycle. Your job as a process engineer is not to keep one shift alive. Your job is to understand why the entire system behaves the way it does. A screen in front of you shows output, rejection rates, downtime, inspection results, temperature data, tool performance, and tiny fluctuations that would mean nothing to most people. At level 5, you solve problems with people standing in front of you. Now, the problems are hidden inside flowcharts, timing charts, and data that only becomes dangerous when it repeats thousands of times. You walk down to the floor with a notebook and a tablet, watching one station from a few steps back. The operator is doing everything correctly. The technician says the machine is within tolerance. The inspector says the defect is small but consistent. Nobody is wrong, and that is what makes the problem harder. You slow the process in your mind, frame by frame. A part arrives, a sensor reads it, a tool presses down, a worker checks alignment, a screen test follows. Somewhere in that chain, a tiny variation is becoming a real cost. You suggest a small adjustment, change the angle of a guide, update the timing between two steps, separate one batch for closer review, retrain one station, not because the worker is bad, but because the process allowed too much interpretation. The change looks minor, almost invisible, but by the end of the shift, the defect rate begins to fall. Nobody outside this room will ever know which decision saved those units. They will only see finished products leaving on time. This is the strange power of level 6. You are no longer touching every device, but your thinking touches thousands of them. And the more you improve the process, the more you realize the next level is not about one problem, one line, or one defect. It is about deciding which problems the entire factory can afford to stop for. Level 7, the production manager. As a production manager, you no longer begin the day by standing at one station or studying one defect. You begin with a schedule that already feels impossible. On your screen are output targets, shipment windows, staffing levels, equipment availability, quality alerts, delayed materials, and messages from departments that all believe their problems should be handled first. The factory floor below you still shines with white light, but now it looks less like a line of machines and more like a giant promise that must be kept every hour. At level 6, you searched for the reason a process failed. At level 7, you decide how much failure the factory can absorb before the business feels it. A shift leader calls about a slow section. Quality reports a suspicious pattern in one batch. Maintenance wants time to inspect a machine before it becomes a bigger issue. Logistics is asking whether finished units will be ready for loading. Every choice has a cost. If you stop the line too early, output falls and deadlines tighten. If you keep it running too long, a defect may spread into hundreds of products. You walk the floor with managers beside you, listening, watching, asking short questions. The workers see you pass and straighten slightly, not because you are frightening, but because your presence means the problem has become serious enough to climb. Then the decision comes: isolate one batch, pause one section, move trained workers from a stable line to a struggling line, and push the schedule into a tighter recovery plan. Nobody loves the decision. That is how you know it is probably real. This level teaches you that management inside a global technology factory is not about giving dramatic orders. It is about choosing the least damaging path before everyone else can see the damage. By evening, the floor is moving again, but you do not feel victory. You feel the weight of tomorrow's schedule already forming behind today's recovery. And above your office, at the next level, someone is not just asking whether one production area survived the day. They are asking whether the entire factory is still strong enough to serve the world outside its walls. Level 8. The factory director at level 8. The factory is no longer something you walk through. It is something that follows you everywhere. Before you reach your office, reports are already waiting. Production output, quality trends, safety checks, energy usage, supplier delays, staffing issues, equipment downtime, and shipment commitments. Tied to markets far beyond the walls of this building. As factory director, you stand at the level where every department believes its pressure is urgent, and most of them are right. The assembly floor wants stability, quality wants caution, engineering wants time to fix root causes, logistics wants finished goods, moving finance wants efficiency, corporate wants confidence, and the workers below want a day that does not break them. At level 7, you managed a major production area. Now you carry the whole site in your head. You walk through clean corridors, past sealed doors, inspection rooms, storage zones, meeting spaces, and production lines that stretch like bright veins under white industrial light. People do not bring you small problems unless small problems are starting to become large ones. A delayed supplier shipment forces one line to adjust its schedule. A quality hold slows outbound stock. A machine group needs maintenance, but the timing threatens a shipment window. You sit in a meeting where every option has a hidden cost: run faster, and you may stress the line, slow down, and you may disappoint the market, approve overtime, and you solve one problem while creating another kind of fatigue. Hold the shipment, and you protect the brand while putting pressure on everyone upstream. This is where you understand that a factory director does not simply chase output. You protect the balance between speed, safety, quality, and reputation. A device leaving this plant is not just a product, it is a promise that the factory made on behalf of a global name. Late in the day, you stand behind glass and look down at the floor, workers in clean uniforms, carts moving between stations, machines blinking in steady rhythm, finished units packed for shipment. From above, it looks calm. Only you know how many decisions were required to make calm visible. And as trucks begin to leave the loading area, you realize the next level is even larger. Because once the products leave your factory, they enter a global system where one missing component, one port delay, or one wrong forecast can shake the entire chain. Level 9. The global supply chain executive at level 9. The factory walls disappear, but the pressure does not. It becomes larger, quieter, and harder to explain to anyone who has never watched a global supply chain tighten around one missing part. Your day begins in a room filled with screens, supplier dashboards, shipping routes, inventory forecasts, regional demand reports, component availability, factory capacity, air freight schedules, port updates, and launch timelines that cannot be moved without consequences. At level 8, you protected one factory. Now you protect the flow between many factories, suppliers, warehouses, transport routes, and markets that all depend on each other without ever standing in the same room. A screen shows one component arriving late from a supplier. Another shows demand rising faster than expected in one region. A third warns that finished goods are ready, but the route forward is becoming expensive. To the outside world, a Samsung product appears on a store shelf as if it simply arrived. To you, it is the final point of thousands of decisions that had to line up correctly. Materials ordered early enough, factories scheduled tightly enough, shipments moved fast enough, inventory placed close enough, and demand predicted accurately enough that stores are not empty when customers are ready to buy. Your phone keeps lighting up with messages from plant managers, logistics teams, procurement leads, regional sales offices, and executives who want certainty in a system built on uncertainty. You cannot create missing parts out of thin air. You cannot make a delayed ship move faster just because a product launch is near. What you can do is choose priorities. Which market receives limited stock first? Which factory gets the next component batch? Which shipment deserves air freight even if the cost hurts? Which delay can be hidden inside inventory? And which one will become visible to customers? This is the level where you learn that global power is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is a spreadsheet, a map, and a decision that quietly changes what millions of people can buy next week. And when the numbers finally stabilize, you do not feel relaxed. You feel the next wave already coming. New products, new forecasts, new pressure from the top. Because above the supply chain, there is one final level. The people who decide what the entire machine is supposed to chase. Level 10. The corporate decision maker at level 10. You are far from the sound of scanners, conveyors, robotic arms, and inspection rooms. But the factory has not left you. It has only become quieter. You sit inside a high-level conference room where the walls show product roadmaps, market forecasts, factory capacity, supplier risks, quality reports, launch schedules, and global demand curves. On the table are devices that look finished, elegant, and almost effortless. A phone with a bright glass screen, a tablet thin enough to disappear into a bag, a television panel showing perfect color, a home appliance designed to look simple in someone's kitchen. To the customer, these products feel like choices. To you, they are consequences. Every feature added, every material selected, every launch date approved, every production target increased travels downward into the system you climbed through. It reaches the parts handler scanning trays before sunrise. It reaches the assembly operator trying not to make one invisible mistake. It reaches the screen inspector fighting tired eyes in a dark room. It reaches the technician kneeling beside a stopped machine, the shift leader calming a strained line, the engineer chasing a repeated defect, the production manager choosing when to stop and when to keep going, the factory director balancing output with reputation, and the supply chain executive moving pressure across the world before customers ever see it. At this level, power does not feel like touching the product. It feels like touching everyone who touches the product. A team presents a new target: faster production, tighter cost, a shorter launch window, a bigger market push. The numbers look clean on the screen. The opportunity looks obvious. But after everything you have seen, you no longer see numbers as harmless. You see wrists repeating the same motion for hours. You see workers checking labels under white light. You see rejected screens in separate trays. You see machines stopping at the worst possible moment. You see containers waiting at ports, engineers arguing over tolerances, managers choosing between speed and caution, and millions of customers expecting perfection without knowing the ladder beneath it. This is the final lesson inside Samsung. The higher you climb, the less visible the human cost becomes. Unless you force yourself to remember it. You approve nothing casually now. You ask where the pressure will land. You ask what quality risk is hidden inside the deadline. You ask whether the factory can absorb the decision without breaking the people who make the promise real. And when the meeting ends, you stand beside the window, looking down at a city full of glowing screens somewhere. A person unlocks a phone and never thinks about the chain behind it. That is the strange success of the whole system. If everyone below you does their job perfectly, the world sees only a smooth product, a trusted brand, a device that simply works. But you know the truth now. A Samsung device is not built by one machine, one designer, or one executive. It is built by thousands of invisible hands moving in sequence, each one carrying a small piece of a global promise. And if this journey changed the way you look at the screen in your hand, then look closer the next time you use it. Because behind every perfect touch, there is an entire world you were never meant to see.